Hi everyone, my name's Kathy Skipper. I'm a menopause midwife and welcome to my channel, The Alchemy of Menopause. In this video, I want to talk about things that come up during menopause that come up because they need to be released. So I think we can all agree that perimenopause anyway, which is the period where women go through much of the changes that they experience during menopause, is what we could call a liminal phase. We're no longer in our fertile years, or we're coming out of them. We haven't quite yet reached our wise woman years. We're in this period. It lasts 2 to 10 years, which is a long time. And so in any liminal period or phase or initiatory phase between things, there's a lot that goes on, and a lot of clearing and sorting and releasing and reclaiming. And that's really the heart of how I help women with perimenopause. So this releasing of the old is very natural. And it happens because the first thing that I am going to mention, and I probably mention it in all my videos because it's vital, is that the way that I lead women through menopause, or I support women on their menopausal journeys, is with an awareness that that women are holistic beings, and the menopausal journey affects us holistically. So let's call it a holistic menopause, which means that we're not just concentrating on the physical changes of menopause, the aging, the symptoms. We're looking at all aspects of the woman or the person going through menopause. So the physical body and the physical changes, the emotional body and the emotional changes, the mind and the psychological changes, and the spiritual self and the changes that happen spiritually. So that's huge. It's a lot. And that's why I believe perimenopause lasts on average between 2 or 10 years. So fluctuating hormones, I do believe, trigger a lot of not just the physical changes that women experience, but also the emotional, mental, and spiritual changes that happen during perimenopause. And so this combination of fluctuating hormones and age and experience mean that once a woman gets to perimenopause in her journey of life, the vessel, which is this holistic idea of the whole woman, physical body, emotional body, mental body, and spiritual body, is strong enough. You know, like the alchemist in his laboratory, he had a whole variety of vessels, and he needed them to be strong enough for whatever transformational process was happening in them. Well, it's the same. At perimenopause, the vessel is hopefully strong enough for these transformations to happen. That's why they happen when we're on average 50 to 51 years old and not when we're younger. And so the first aspect of what comes up to be released in perimenopause that I want to talk about is what I'm calling cellular memories. So these memories are stored in the body's cells, and they haven't been felt emotionally, and they haven't been processed cognitively or by the mind. So these can be traumatic experiences from any age in life, although they are often from childhood, sometimes even pre-verbal childhood. So it's when something happens traumatically to a child that would have been too much emotionally and cognitively for the child to even be aware of, let alone integrate or process. So the body holds on to this memory until a time in that person's life when the body senses that the rest of the vessel, the whole vessel, is strong enough for the memory to come up and be dealt with. So perimenopause is an ideal time. It's a liminal phase. Women have a lot of experience of life, and they're strong enough. We are strong enough to process these hidden, buried parts of ourselves. So the body is very wise, and so are our emotional selves and our minds and our spirits. So one thing that I find very interesting is that there's a lot of, especially very medical websites out there in the mainstream that talk about, women's memories and their cognitive decline, them losing their memories and they can't remember things and they've got a foggy mind and they're declining cognitively and this is a disaster. But these same websites fail to look at or mention or even give any awareness to the fact that women are perceiving and functioning and processing on a whole new level at perimenopause if they allow themselves, if they have the right support. So instinctively, intuitively, psychically, all these aspects of what is very traditionally the feminine principle are coming up to help us. But nobody ever mentions that in the medical world. It's just looking at this very dry, very linear way of being in the world. And if that's not online as much as it was, then there's something terribly wrong. But I would differ with that and say that's maybe not online as much, but that's because there's a lot more going on and it's in a very much more deeper feminine way. Doesn't mean that what comes up through these cellular memories, even when the vessel is strong enough, isn't frightening and can't be felt as being overwhelming. And that's why I think women's circles are great, women who have been through this process on a deep holistic level, who can hold space for other women. And that's why I'm now training women in a 9-month mentorship to be menopause midwives, because we need this process to be, we need people to hold space for this process. Okay, and so once, I can't talk about what these memories are because each woman is unique. And in my training, we have a lot of practice on how to work with what comes up, how to integrate it, how to process it, how to transform it from an experience that was traumatic into one that we're aware of, into one that becomes our wisdom. So that's really the process. But what I will say is that once these memories have been worked with, and meaning, which is the key, is that meaning has been made from them. That's the key of menopause in a way, is that everything that that comes up to be processed, everything that comes up to be reclaimed, everything that comes up to be released, is all part of this meaning making of each woman's individual story or roadmap. And so take, for example, a woman who is able to release some, maybe she was abused as a child and there was a particular aspect of that she held in her body and she's worked very hard and has put it into context and made meaning out of it and been able to do some ritual around it and process it. And this then becomes a fragment of her story that she will weave together into her whole story. So here, the point I want to make is, there's a lot out there, the heroine story, the heroine goes out, he slays the dragon, he comes back changed, he marries a princess, he's a hero. That's not at all the heroine's journey, or the way that women make sense or meaning out of their journey. The way I want to explain it is women piece things together and weave things together that might look completely unrelated, but they eventually come together in a beautiful form, maybe like a quilt of lots of different pieces that she's woven together once she's been able to, bit by bit, patiently over these 2 to 10 years, integrate these parts. And so they eventually become her wholeness. And that's beautiful.